What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel and to the last Halloween themed drawing tutorial of this year. I'm your host BeeJayDeL, and in today's video I'm going to show you how you can draw this cute little candy apple from start to finish using the iPad and Procreate, just like all my other videos too. It's all in real time, so no time lapse, no edits. So if you want to follow along step by step and draw with me, keep watching, and also stay tuned to the end of the video where I announce the winner from last week's Frankenstein's Monster Contest. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and draw a candy apple just in time for Halloween. Starting out, I'm using a 3000 by 3000 300 DPI canvas. It's an RGB canvas. For my brush, I'm going to start out using my cartoon sketch pencil. That's part of my cartooning pack. It's available on Gumroad right now. And for my color palette, once again, I've got this pre-made, so if you want to follow along with the exact same colors that I'm using in today's tutorial, you can download this for free. If you go over to my website, BeeJayDeL.com, underneath the YouTube reference materials page, you will find this along with a video at the top of the page that kind of walks you through how to install it in Procreate. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's get started. We're just going to start out with a basic sketch for this candy apple. Starting down here, just kind of with a circle or oval shape for the base of our apple. And then as we kind of come back down here at the bottom, we'll start to pull in that base there of the apple. And then we're going to have the caramel dripping down here. So if we start here in the center and kind of start pulling up and away from that base shape that we've got, and we'll just do some drips coming down here, just different sizes and different lengths of them dripping down. You can pull one down past. And as we get here to the side, then we'll start to pull this back around, just like that. So there's our caramel on top. Let's go ahead and put a stick here in the center, just with a vertical line coming up on each side, then curving around there at the top. Then of course we need to give this guy a face. So let's give him some ovals here for the eyes. We'll make one bigger and one smaller. And then instead of bringing the lines in here, when we go in to do the inks, we'll kind of stop where they connect right here and right here. So they'll be kind of one piece there, and then we can just put the pupils there in the center, kind of like that. And finally then we need a mouth for this guy, so let's go ahead and get a curved line here coming up and around. A couple of V's there where it comes together, and then get the bottom down in here. A tongue in there, and maybe a little chin part right there. And I think that's pretty good for our actual base sketch. So pretty simple, pretty easy. Next up, let's go ahead and start the inking process. So to begin this, we're going to come up here to our layers menu. I'm going to make a new layer. This is going to be our inks layer. And then I'm going to tap N to bring up the blend mode on our sketch layer. We're just going to turn down the opacity on this down to about 20–25%. We want to be able to see it, but we don't want it to be too dark. We want to draw on top of it. And now on the layer 2, our lines layer, I'm going to come back up here to my brush library, and I'm going to use my standard inker streamline. Once again, this is still part of that cartooning pack. And then we want to decide exactly where the light source is coming from. Doing this is going to help us with line weights. We can add thicker lines to kind of signify where the shadows are, thinner lines to represent areas closer to the light source. So if we have the light source coming in from this top right hand side, means thinner lines over here and here, and then thicker lines as we come down around there to the back. So we'll use that, and we can kind of zoom in here to start. I think I'm going to come in with the thicker lines here in the back. So I'll start right here with kind of a tapered line and just kind of bring this up and down and around. I think I want my brush a little bit bigger though, so I'm going to make that just a tad bit bigger so I can get a little bit of a thicker line. Continue to bring these down and around. You'll see how I'm tapering these here so I can start the next drip. It kind of gives that nice overlap there. Continue to bring these around. And as I bring this one up, once again, this is going to be a little bit lighter of a line weight there coming in. All right, looks good. Let's go ahead and pull that up just a tad. We'll get the line here for the bottom of the apple, bringing this down and around. Thicker line down here. And then this line coming up here to connect everything. Looks good. You can see this one's pretty quick, moves pretty fast here. Let's go ahead and do the mouth now. So I'm going to come in with that top line here. Bring that around one more time just to get it exactly where I want it. And then the one here at the bottom, bringing that up and around. A little bit lopsided there on the sides, so I'm going to try that just a few times just to make sure it's where I want it to be. Now I can erase where these connect, so I've got a little bit more control there. Pull these around like that. Then we'll get the tongue in there. Going to start with a taper here, pulling it back up and in, and back on this side. Get the chin part here. And then finally to the eyes. So I'm going to start here on this one and kind of pull this around, kind of stopping there to lock it in. And come on this side and do the same thing here. Get the eyes in there. Let's do a little dot here for one of the pupils, and then we'll do a little bit bigger one over here. You can also pull some tapered lines here underneath the eyes if you want to, just to kind of make those pop a little bit more. Pull that around here like that. And then finally we've got the stick, so let's just pull this up and around. Thicker line here in the back you can see. And then I'll pull some tapered lines here, just so we've got that kind of wood texture of the stick. Just like that. And then finally, I'm going to go ahead and hold down here in the background to select white. We'll zoom in here and we're going to add in some reflections here to the pupils. Then I'm also going to grab my eraser and just kind of fine tune where these come together. Make that a little bit sharper there. All right, pull them back out. You can see that is what we are left with. So that's going to be the inks. Now we can move on to adding the color flats. So to add the color flats, we're going to come up here to our layers menu again. We're going to tap on this layer 1 and we're going to hit the plus button here. That's going to give us a new layer between those. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the sketch layer now that we're done with that. And then I'm going to go ahead and tap on layer 2. Tapping again to bring up our layer menu here. And I'm going to set this as reference. So what this is going to do is it's going to allow us to drag and drop all the colors here onto layer 3, using that as a guide. So coming back up to our color palette then, the first color we've got next to the black is the red. We'll use that for the apple. So we'll just drag and drop that in. Next up, we've got the brown of the caramel. Next up, we've got this color here, lighter brown for the stick. Next up, we've got this darker pink color for the inside of the mouth. And then we've got the pink then for the tongue. And then finally, we've got white for the eyes. So right now they look like they're white, but that's because the background is showing through here. So we'll just drag and drop that in, and we've got the white of the eyes. All right, so that's color flats. Super easy, super quick. So let's go ahead and move on to shadows and highlights next. This is going to be a little bit easier just because we already decided that our light source is coming in from this way. So we know our highlights are going to be on this side, shadows then on this side and at the bottom. And for our shadow color, we've got the second row, the color right there. The only color in that row, that's going to be our shadows. So to apply these, we want to come back up to our layers menu. We want to go ahead and make a new layer. This is going to be our shadows layer. And we're going to tap this and we're going to set this as clipping mask. So what this does is it's going to allow us to add the shadows on a totally separate layer, but it's only going to show up on areas that we have colored in on layer 3. So if we go outside of the lines there, it's not going to show up. All right, once again, still using that standard inker streamline. And I'm just going to start to pull in here We'll zoom in so we can see a little bit better. Just gonna start to pull in some pretty big sections here of shadows. And you'll see I'm gonna start to connect these around, because once these are filled in, then I can go ahead and just drag and drop to fill in this entire area. Just continue to pull these around, and it doesn't have to be perfect right now because we can go back in and fine tune them once we have the general area filled in there. Around the shadows down here. Coming up to connect everything here. Make sure everything's connected so we can drag and drop. Otherwise, it's going to fill in everything. So we're ready to drag the color in, but first we've got to come back up to our layers menu. We're going to turn off reference now on layer 1, because if we would drag and drop the color in now, it's going to fill in everything. So we've got that turned off. Let's come back to our shadows layer and drag and drop. Hopefully it fills it in. Yep, so we had everything connected. Sometimes when you do that, you're gonna see it's gonna fill in everything because you think you've got all the lines connected and you missed one someplace or some gap in there that you can't see. Let's bring up some shadows here on the stick. And then we can go ahead and drop the opacity now to see what we're working with. So coming back up here to the layers menu, tapping the N again for blend mode and dropping this down, say probably about 25–26%, looks pretty good there. And then we can add some more shadows here around these drips underneath, because those of course are going to have some shadows to them. And pull that. And I've talked about before, once an area gets really shadowed in and it's hard for the viewer to tell that it's shadows just because it takes up so much space, you can actually go in then and remove some shadows on the edges with your eraser, just so the viewer is aware that there are two different values there. Let me zoom in here a little bit better here. And for this, I want to switch over to the standard ink or streamline version of that brush, so you got a little bit more control here. So we can just kind of pull away some of these shadows. It does show two different values next to each other and makes it just a little bit easier to tell that, yep, there are two different colors there. We can do the same thing down here with the red too. Pulling that up where those meet. And you could even do some little tapered lines like that too, just around the design. All right, that looks good there. Go back in just a little bit more with the shadows here on these overlaps. Get some in there. And then we can go ahead and do the tongue. A little bit of shadows in there. And now let's switch to highlights. So we're going to use that color that we use for the stick. That'll be a good highlight color. And I don't think we'll even need to make a new layer for this. I think this will be close enough. Yeah, we've got a pretty good highlight there. Sometimes you'll have to add highlights to a separate layer just so you've got more control over that opacity. Something with the shadows here, the opacity there might not match up with the opacity that you want for the highlights. One might be too dark, one might be too light. So a lot of the times I will do two separate layers for those, but in this case, I think this works pretty well for these. See, I'm using these pretty sparingly. Then let's add some more to the eyes here. If we go in, I've got this blue down here that we're gonna use for the background color. We can use that for the eyes. Zoom in here so you can see a little bit better. I'm just going to pull in some tapered ovals around here, just to make those eyes pop a little bit more, so that they've got some shadows in there too. We don't want to leave those out. Just tapered line there. All right, looks pretty good. All right, I think we're done there. Now we're going to move on to adding a background to this guy. So to do this, let's go up to the layers menu again. We're going to come down to the very bottom layer here. And we're gonna make a new layer. Coming up here then to our color palette, let's go ahead and use the yellow. This is kind of my de facto background that I go for with a lot of these Halloween themed designs, just to keep them pretty simple and keep things moving along. Draw the circle there and then use the arrow transform just to bring it down to where I want it. Then we'll drag and drop that so we've got kind of a moon background. Then coming back up to my colors palette, I'm going to use the black here. I'm going to switch over my brush then to one of my Halloween brushes. These are available on Gumroad too, totally free. It's just a 2-pack, it's got a tree and bats in there. So if we choose the tree, coming back up to the layers menu then, I'm going to tap on that moon and I'm going to set that as alpha lock. So this is going to allow us to plop that tree in there, but it's just going to stay inside the circle. It's kind of like clipping mask, but it's all on the same layer. It's not a separate layer. Now we've got that, just tap once for the tree. And then I'm going to come back up and grab the bat brush here and just kind of throw some bats in here. So if you twist the canvas then, as you go, it's going to twist the bat as well. You see how it's not the same as that first bat? So that way you can kind of have control over which direction the bats are in. If you adjust the brush size then, it's going to adjust the size of the bats as well. So you can have a few different sizes in there. And then finally, let's go ahead and come back up here to our layers menu. Still on that layer here. I think we're okay on that one. Actually, just leave that on alpha lock. Let's make a new layer. And we'll drag this down to the back. This is going to be the background color. Just coming back up to the colors palette, it's just that dark blue. Just drag and drop that one in there. And that is pretty much it. So I'm going to grab another black swatch here and just switch to my cartooning pencil or brush again. Get this guy signed. And there we go. Just a really kind of quick tutorial showing you a candy apple just in time for Halloween. October 31st, happy Halloween, everybody. Hopefully you enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Also, leave a comment and share it with somebody who might enjoy it or get some value out of it as well. If you do take part in any of these tutorials too, I definitely want to see what you come up with. So if you're online, definitely tag me at BeeJayDeL on either Instagram or Twitter. Or if you're on Facebook, I do have a group over there called Keep Creating, a group for artists by artists. All those are linked down in the description below. And speaking of which, it is now time to announce the winner of last week's Frankenstein's Monster contest. So last week's video featured a contest around my Frankenstein's Monster design. I didn't do a background in that video, wanted you guys to follow along and then add your own background. And I said I would announce a winner for that contest this week. So I'm happy to announce that Katie H from the Keep Creating group over on Facebook is the winner of that contest. Love this one. She followed along with the basic ideas and the techniques used in the video, but made her own character, kind of Frankenstein's monster vampire design. So super cool there. And then the background added to this with that haunted house in the back. Love the colors, love the technique she used. So congrats, Katie. I'll be reaching out to you on Facebook to get your information to send you out that prize pack. And thanks to everybody else that followed along. That's it for me for today. Once again, guys, happy Halloween, and until next time, keep creating.